So, picture this. It's like 2 p.m. on a Tuesday.
Okay.
You're walking through the busiest park in your city. And, you know the one, it's totally packed. People are just staring at their phones, aggressively thumbing through endless feeds.
Yeah, just completely tuned out.
Exactly. Someone is arguing loudly on a headset about some corporate deliverable. A couple is over there, like, bickering about where to get lunch. It's just that standard exhausting hum of modern life, right?
The noise, yeah.
Right, the noise. But right in the middle of all of this, sitting under the blazing, just unapologetic sun, is a massive, heavy slate chalkboard.
Which is such a striking image.
It really is. And standing next to it is a person who absolutely refuses to speak a single word about the real world. I mean, if you walk up and ask them for the time or ask who they're voting for, they don't answer you.
Not a word.
No. Instead, they hand you a piece of crisp white chalk, they point to the slate, and they ask you, can you draw a boundary around nothing?
It's an incredibly jarring concept, isn't it? I mean, it completely shatters the expected social contract of a public space.
Oh, totally.
Because we are so conditioned to this constant exchange of, trivial information, the noise, like you said. Mm-hmm. So encountering a physical manifestation of absolute silence and profound questioning, it feels almost alien.
Alien. But maybe exactly what we need right now, because today we are exploring a manual that demands you become that person. We are diving into a text called The 7 Mandates of Dissemination, a concrete pedagogy of the infinite.
It's a heavy title.
It is. And I want to be clear right out of the gate here. We aren't just going to analyze this document like some dry historical artifact in this deep dive. Our mission today is to show you the escape hatch.
The way out.
Exactly. Because if you're listening to this, I know you feel that exhaustion, the timeline, the endless notifications, the meaningless debates. This text offers a radical, terrifying, and honestly beautifully concrete way out. A complete lifestyle shift.
Yeah.
It wants you to take a vow, give up the finite world entirely, and become a conduit for pure mathematics.
Because it's not a philosophy book, right? It is an operational blueprint. It's a set of extremely rigid instructions designed to transform an ordinary citizen like you, listening right now, into an elite pure mathematics researcher.
Right.
And it starts with this metaphor that completely redefines how we're supposed to interact with knowledge. The text states, and I love this line, the pure mathematician tends to the tree of knowledge, but does not eat because he's not hungry.
See, that line is exactly what originally hooked me. Tends to the tree of knowledge, but does not eat because he is not hungry. Because the way we usually think about learning is inherently greedy.
Well, absolutely. It's transactional.
Right. We consume content. We are hungry for information. We want to read an article so we can, I don't know, sound smart at a dinner party or learn a skill to get a promotion. We constantly want to extract value.
Yeah, everything is about what we can get out of it.
Exactly. But this metaphor says, no, if you want to understand the absolute foundation of reality, you have to stop trying to extract value from it.
You have to strip away the ego entirely. You become a gardener, a caretaker of an eternal structure. You aren't cultivating the math so you can build a better bridge or design a faster computer chip.
Right. It's not applied math.
No, not at all. You are cultivating it simply because it is the truth, and the truth requires stewardship. When you stop being hungry for worldly, finite things like status, money, arguments, you finally create the internal space necessary to comprehend the infinite.
And what's wild is you can't just meditate your way into this mindset. The text is very clear about that. You have to physically manifest it, which is why the very first mandate 1, requires you to establish a physical anchor.
Yes, the physical requirements are non-negotiable.
You literally have to sever your ties with the digital transient world.
You do. You must procure a large, high-quality, literal slate chalkboard. It cannot be a dry erase board.
No whiteboards.
No whiteboards. It cannot be a digital tablet. It must be heavy slate. You must erect it in a highly visible public square, a park, or a busy thoroughfare. And, crucially, you must build a dry, comfortable terrace directly in front of it for people to sit, positioned directly under the open sun.
The sun. That is such an intense detail to me.
It's very specific.
Right, because we live our lives in these perfectly climate-controlled boxes, just staring at glowing rectangles. But a slate chalkboard under the midday sun, That is stark.
It demands to be acknowledged.
Exactly. There's nowhere to hide. You can literally feel the heat radiating off the slate. You can feel the chalk dust coating your fingertips. You are forcing a collision between undeniable physical reality and abstract mathematical reality.
The sun represents unyielding exposure. In the digital world, we can hide behind avatars, right? We can edit our responses.
Yeah.
We curate our existence.
Constantly.
But when you are standing at that board under the sun, you are entirely present.
Yeah.
You're exposing the fundamental truths of the universe to the harsh light of day. There are no shadows for deception.
And once you're out there, you don't just stand like a statue either. There is a daily ritual. Every single morning, you have to write one of what the text calls the personas of arithmetic at the top of the board.
In large, clear letters.
Right. These are basically the philosophical axioms of this new life. For instance, persona 0 is, the empty set captures the void. The empty set is not the void.
So you write that clearly, beautifully, and then you wait. You become a fixture of the environment. But how you wait, how you exist in that public space, is governed by Mandate 3.
Which is intense.
It is undeniably the most severe and challenging instruction in the entire blueprint. It requires the practitioner to take the ascetic vow.
This is where I think most people's brains are just going to short circuit. Taking the ascetic vow means you must abstain entirely, without a single exception, from all worldly, finite discourse.
All of it. You cannot discuss politics.
Yeah.
You cannot discuss pop culture. You are completely forbidden from engaging in commerce. You cannot ask for donations to support your terrorists. And you cannot sell pamphlets or books. If someone walks up to you and says, wow, this is amazing performance art, do you have a Venmo? You cannot engage with that transaction.
Not at all.
Your speech is restricted entirely to pure mathematics.
Okay, hold on. Let's play this out realistically, because the practicality of this seems, well, it seems impossible.
It's difficult.
Let's say I actually do this. Okay. I quit my job. I buy the slate. I haul it down to the park. I'm standing there. And a guy walking, a golden retriever, comes up to me.
Okay.
He says, hey, man, crazy heat wave we're having, right? Think the mayor is ever going to fix the AC in the subway? What do? Do I just stare blankly at him? Because if I do that, I'm just the creepy guy in the park?
Right.
How do you actually function or exist if you refuse to acknowledge the reality that literally everyone else is living in?
Well, it is an extreme form of isolation, I'll grant you that. But it is a highly calibrated, purposeful isolation. The blueprint addresses this directly. This total abstention from the noise is designed to turn you into a magnetic beacon of absolute certainty.
A magnetic beacon.
Think about the guy with the golden retriever. He is entirely consumed by the finite, the weather, the mayor, the subway.
Right, everyday stuff.
And everyone he meets all day long will validate that finite reality. They'll complain with him. They'll argue with him. But when he encounters you and you refuse to engage with that triviality, it creates a massive psychological vacuum.
A vacuum.
And you become an anomaly. By remaining completely silent and unbothered by the turbulence of human affairs, you don't become creepy. You become profoundly intriguing. You're signaling that you possess something far more important than opinions on the subway.
So, because I'm the only quiet thing in a world where literally everyone else is screaming, people will eventually be drawn to the silence.
Exactly.
But I still have to communicate somehow, right? I mean, I can't just be a mime.
You can communicate, yes, but the allowance is strictly bound. You may interface with the material world and use the language of the material world only insofar as it furthers mathematics.
Okay, so there's a loophole.
A very narrow one. You are allowed to use analogies, perhaps from psychology or theology or physics, but strictly and immediately to map the listener's mind onto the rigid axioms of set theory.
Give me an example of that. Let's say someone comes up and starts talking about their religious beliefs. They want to talk about God.
Okay, so if they bring up theology, you cannot have a theological debate. You cannot argue about scripture or morality, but you can use their understanding of an eternal, uncreated creator to introduce the axiom of infinity in set theory.
Oh, wow. Okay.
You use their finite language as a temporary bridge to the infinite, but you only ever walk them across that bridge toward the math. You never walk back over the bridge to join them in their theological debate.
Right, you stay on your side.
Exactly. The moment the mathematical concept is mapped, the finite analogy is discarded.
That is wild. It completely insulates you from small talk. I mean, every single interaction you have is forced to have a singular, elevated, structural purpose.
Precisely.
But let's be real here. If I am standing next to a chalkboard with the empty set captures the void written on it in big letters, I am going to attract cynics.
Oh, absolutely.
I'm going to attract angry people. People are going to come up to me and mock me. They'll call me crazy. They'll try to provoke a reaction.
And the blueprint expects exactly that. It banks on human cynicism.
Yeah.
That is why we have Mandate 2, the engagement protocol.
Handing over the chalk.
Yes, how to hand over the chalk. The absolute cardinal rule of this protocol is that you must engage in zero defensive rhetoric.
Meaning I can't defend my own sanity. I can't say, look, I'm not crazy. I'm doing a pedagogical experiment.
Exactly. Defending yourself is an act of ego. It is a finite action. It requires stepping into their world, playing by their rules of debate. If they call you crazy and you argue back, you have lost. You have broken the vow.
It's almost like verbal Aikido.
That's a good way to put it.
Instead of meeting their punch, their insult with a block, which just creates friction, you completely sidestep the energy. You let their angry momentum carry them forward, and right as they stumble, you redirect them. You don't argue. You literally step aside, pick up a piece of chalk, hand it to them, and point to the board.
It is a brilliant physical gesture. By handing them the chalk, you take all the burden of proof, all the defensive energy, and you transfer it directly into their hands. You are forcing their brain out of its verbal, emotional, defensive state and dragging it into a spatial, logical, physical state.
But realistically, if I hand an angry person a piece of chalk, they aren't going to start solving quadratic equations.
No, probably not.
They might just throw it at me or snap it in half or, draw a giant, crude, anatomical shape on my beautiful slate board. Does the blueprint actually account for human nature?
It does. If they throw it, they throw it. If they draw something obscene, you wait for them to leave, you pick up the eraser, and you wipe the board clean. The board is indifferent to their anger.
The board doesn't care.
Exactly. The infinite is not threatened by a crude drawing, but the protocol gives you a tool to short-circuit that impulse to mock. When you hand them the chalk, you ask a very specific grounding question.
Right, the circuit breakers. The text gives us two incredible examples of this. The first one is the one we started the show with. You hand them the chalk and ask, can you draw a boundary around nothing?
Think about the cognitive dissonance that creates. They marched over to you ready to yell, ready to make a scene for their friends. Suddenly, they are holding a piece of chalk, staring at a blank, dark slate, trying to parse the linguistic and geometric puzzle of what it means to draw a boundary around nothing.
It's like a system reboot in their brain.
Yes, because nothing isn't a thing you can draw, but a boundary is, so they have to start separating the concept of emptiness from the concept of the container.
Which leads directly into the mathematics of set theory.
Exactly.
But there's another grounding question provided in the text, which is perhaps even more devious because it sounds like it belongs to the finite world.
Yes, the political trap.
You hand them the chalk and ask, if everyone votes for their own self-interest, how does the system avoid contradiction?
It's brilliant.
It is a total trap. I read that and immediately thought, oh, we're talking about politics now, we're talking about democracy and capitalism, which goes completely against the ascetic vow. So how is that question even allowed?
Because it is not a political question. It is a mathematical one, specifically concerning game theory and social choice theory. The cynic hears voting and thinks, finally, an argument I know how to win. I'll explain to this crazy guy why my political party is logical.
They think they have you.
Right. They take the chalk and they start trying to draw a diagram of how voting works to prove you wrong. But the question is actually baiting them into discovering Arrow's impossibility theorem.
Okay, stop right there. You have to explain Arrow's theorem to me because the manual just drops the name like I'm supposed to know what it is.
Sure.
If I'm the guy standing at the chalkboard and I've trapped this cynic into trying to draw out a voting system, what exactly is the contradiction I'm waiting for him to hit?
Let's break it down simply. Imagine you have an electorate, and they are voting on three options: A, B, and C. Arrow's theorem mathematically proves that if you have three or more options, there is no possible ranked choice voting system that can translate individual preferences into a community-wide ranking while meeting a certain set of basic logical criteria.
Like what criteria?
Like fairness and lack of a dictator. It proves that a perfect voting system is mathematically impossible.
Give me a concrete example. Show me the paradox on the chalkboard. How does this happen?
Okay, let's say we have three voters: Alice, Bob, and Charlie.
Okay. Alice, Bob, Charlie.
Alice prefers option A over B and B over C. So her ranking is A, then B, then C.
Got it.
Bob prefers option B over C and C over A. So his ranking is B, then C, then A.
Okay, B, C, A.
And Charlie prefers option C over A and A over B. So his ranking is C, then A, then B.
C, A, B.
All right. Now, the cynic at your chalkboard tries to figure out what the community wants. He looks at A versus B. Well, Alice prefers A over B, and Charlie prefers A over B.
Right, that's 2 out of 3.
Exactly. So the community prefers A over B.
Okay, makes sense. Majority rules. A beats B.
Next, he looks at B versus C. Alice prefers B over C, and Bob prefers B over C.
Again, 2 out of 3.
Yes. So the community prefers B over C.
Right, so logically, if the community prefers A over B and B over C, then the community must prefer A over C. That's just basic transitive logic, right? If I am taller than you and you are taller than John, I must be taller than John.
Exactly. That's how logic should work.
Yeah.
But now, tell the cynic to look at the votes for A versus C. Look at the preferences. Bob prefers C over A. Charlie prefers C over A.
Wait.
2 out of 3 voters prefers C over A.
Hold on, let me get this straight. So the community prefers A over B and B over C, but they also prefer C over A. That's a loop.
It is a loop.
It's a contradiction. A beats B, B beats C, C beats A. It's literally rock, paper, scissors.
Precisely. The cynic who thought they were going to lecture you on the rationality of politics has just mathematically proven that perfectly rational individual choices can lead to a completely irrational, contradictory group outcome.
Wow.
The system collapses in on itself.
That is absolutely brilliant. You use the language of their finite, frustrating political world to completely corner them with pure, immutable logic.
Yes.
And when they stare at that loop, A beats B, B beats C, C beats A, they are suddenly no longer a cynic. They are a student. The finite noise has been silenced by a mathematical paradox.
And that is the exact moment you transition to mandate 4, the logical bedrock. Once they are holding the chalk and staring at the slate, searching for an answer, you have to build their mind from absolute scratch.
From the ground up.
Yes. But again, the blueprint enforces a brutal pedagogical restriction. You must use the Moore method.
The Moore method. Now, Robert Lee Moore was a real historical mathematician, and his teaching method is... it's legendary and honestly pretty controversial in the math world. The absolute unbreakable rule of the Moore method is you must never lecture.
Never. The practitioner is forbidden from explaining the answer. You cannot write out a proof for them to copy. You do not hand them a textbook. You simply give them the fundamental axioms, the absolute lowest level building blocks of logic, and you force them to derive and prove every single theorem themselves.
But wait, hold on. If I am the practitioner and I've taken the vow, how do I teach Zermelo-Fraenkel's set theory, which is what the text mandates, right?
Yes, ZFC.
How do I teach that if I don't even know it myself? I mean, how do I teach something I don't know?
Well, the manual implicitly assumes that to become the practitioner, you have already undergone this process. You cannot erect the anchor if you do not understand the infinite. You must have mastered ZFC's or Zermelo-Fraenkel set theory with the axiom of choice to guide someone else through it.
Okay, so assuming I know it, I have this person at the board, they just realize nothing is hard to draw, so I introduce them to ZFC. Where do we actually start?
You start at the void, you guide them back to persona 0. The empty set captures the void.
Right.
The empty set is not the void. You introduce the axiom of extensionality, which basically says that sets are defined entirely by their members.
Meaning?
If 2 sets contain the exact same things, they are the exact same set.
Okay, simple enough.
And then you introduce the axiom of the empty set, which asserts that there is a set containing absolutely no elements.
I want to make sure I really understand this distinction between the void and the empty set, because it seems central to the whole philosophy here. The void is just absolute nothingness, right? It is uncontainable absence. But the empty set is a mathematical object.
Let's use an analogy.
Yeah.
The void is the conceptual idea of absolute absence. You can't touch it, you can't interact with it. The empty set, however, is an empty box.
A box.
Yes. The box itself is a thing. It exists. It has a boundary. But what is inside the box? Nothing. By asking the participant to draw a boundary around nothing, you are forcing them to construct the empty box. You are forcing them to define the empty set.
So they draw a circle on the slate. Inside the circle is nothing, but the circle is the set. The circle is the boundary.
Yes. And once they have that empty box, you force them to construct the entire universe of numbers out of it. This relies on the von Neumann construction of the ordinals.
Walk me through that, because the idea of building numbers out of literally nothing sounds like magic. How does the guy with the chalk build the number 3 using only empty boxes?
It is pure structural logic. First, you have the empty set, the empty box. We call that 0.
Okay, 0 is an empty box.
Next, you need to create 1. How do you do that? You create a new box, and inside that new box, you put your empty box.
Okay, so I have a set, and inside it is the empty set. The box contains 1 item. An empty box, so that's 1.
Correct. Now, how do you make 2? You create a new box. Inside this new box, you put everything you have built so far. You put in the empty box, which is 0, and you put in the box containing the empty box, which is 1.
Ah, I see.
So this new box contains 2 distinct items. That is the number 2.
And for 3, I make a new box and I throw in 0, 1, and 2. It contains 3 items. I am literally building quantity. I am building the concept of counting out of nothing but nested emptiness.
Yes.
That is staggering.
And as they are drawing these nested circles on the slate, physically visualizing how numbers are born from the void, you introduce Persona 1 and Persona 2.
Which are?
Persona 1, no finite set is good, but the void is good. And Persona 2, the infinite is good, the void is infinite.
Why is no finite set good? I just spent all this time building 1, 2, and 3. Why are they bad now?
Because they are limited. They are bounded. The finite world, the world of 3, of 10, of a million, is the world of the noise. It is the world of bank accounts and follower counts and political polls.
Right, the stuff we're trying to escape.
Exactly. A finite set can always be contained by a larger finite set. It is always subordinate. The text is facing the student to realize the absolute necessity of the transfinite. They must understand that true goodness, true structural integrity, only exists when you transcend the finite entirely and grasp the infinite.
But getting someone to grasp the infinite, to derive the axiom of infinity on a chalkboard, I mean, they are going to hit a wall. Most people are going to get completely stuck.
Oh, inevitably.
They are going to draw a paradox, or they're just going to stare at the slate, completely paralyzed by the abstraction. And this is where the pedagogy gets really intense. Mandate 6. The more method loop. What actually happens when they fail?
When the participant hits a logical wall, you do absolutely nothing to help them.
Right.
You do not offer a hint. You do not gently correct their mistake. You do not point to where they dropped a negative sign. You simply pick up the eraser and you wipe the board completely clean.
That is brutal. Imagine that.
Yeah.
You are a guy who just stopped in the park. You've been standing in the hot sun for an hour. Your hands are covered in chalk dust. You've been agonizing over these nested sets, trying to prove a theorem, and you make one logical misstep. And the silent person next to you just wipes it all away.
Erased.
Doesn't say a word, just erases it.
It feels brutal, yes, but it is psychologically necessary. Once the board is clean, you look at them and you say, the terrace will be here tomorrow under the sun, and you must return with the proof.
It's gamification, but at the most fundamental psychological level.
It is.
It's like a notoriously difficult video game like Dark Souls or something. There is no tutorial. There are no save points in the middle of a boss fight. If you die, you go all the way back to the beginning. And why do millions of people play games like that? Because it hooks into our innate human compulsion for logical resolution. We hate open loops. We hate unsolved puzzles.
Exactly. When you wipe that board clean, you are leaving a massive open loop in their mind.
Yeah.
They will walk away. They will go back to their job, back to their phone, back to their finite life. But that night, when they're lying in bed, they won't be thinking about the argument they had on social media.
No, they'll be thinking about the chalk.
They will be visualizing the sets.
Yeah.
They will be trying to untangle the paradox you erased.
You are infecting them with the infinite. You are rewiring their dopamine receptors. They are no longer hungry for the trivial. They are starving for absolute proof.
Yes. And so they come back the next day.
And maybe you erase it again.
And they come back the next day. And slowly the noise of their life fades out and the clarity of the mathematics takes over.
But counting sets and building numbers,
Yeah.
that is just discrete logic. If the ultimate goal is to understand the actual foundation of the universe, basic arithmetic isn't enough, right? You have to teach them how to map the shape of reality itself.
Which brings us to the transition outlined in Mandate 5. Once they have mastered the discrete logic of ZFC, they must ascend. They must be moved from the discrete to the continuous.
Okay.
They must learn the geometry of reality. They must learn general topology.
And the manual is incredibly pedantic about how this is done. It mandates the use of the framework from Stephen Willard's textbook, General Topology, but it also issues some massive prohibitions.
Very strict rules.
Right. It says, under no circumstances shall early transcendentals be entertained. And more importantly, topology should be understood fundamentally and not through the lens of metric spaces. Okay, stop. Why this absolute strict ban on metric spaces? What even is a metric space?
This is a crucial philosophical distinction. A metric space is a mathematical set where there is a defined notion of distance between elements. You have a metric, you have a ruler. You can say point A is exactly 5 units away from point B.
Okay, so it's how we normally think about space, like reading a map. Boston is 200 miles from New York.
Exactly. But think about what that implies. It implies human scale. It implies human measurement. It relies on finite values that we assign. The mandate wants to completely break the student away from that human-centric, finite way of perceiving the universe.
Right, because finite is bad.
Exactly. Topology, when understood fundamentally through open sets rather than a ruler, forces you to think about how things are connected, how they are shaped, without ever relying on a human-made measurement system.
Let me try an analogy here to see if I have this right. A metric space is like trying to understand a beautiful, massive Renaissance painting by taking a wooden ruler and measuring the exact millimeter distance between every single brushstroke.
Yeah.
You are capturing data, sure, but you are entirely missing the picture. General topology, on the other hand, is understanding the painting by observing how the colors blend into each other, how the light sections neighbor the dark sections, how the emotional resonance connects the whole piece. You understand the fundamental structure of the art without ever once caring about inches or centimeters.
That is a phenomenal analogy. Topology is often called rubber sheet geometry because you can stretch and deform the space, and the fundamental topological properties like whether there's a hole in it or what remain true regardless of the distance.
It's about truth, not distance.
Yes, you are teaching them to map the infinite truth, not the finite distances. And to do this, the mandate specifies you must guide them to understand the mechanics of topological filters.
Topological filters. Okay, now we are getting into the deep end. And this is where the daily writings on the board, the personas, become incredibly relevant again. Specifically personas 3 and 4. Tell me about filters. What are we actually filtering?
In topology, a filter is a special kind of collection of sets that captures the notion of large sets. It is a way to rigorously define the concept of zooming in on a point or converging toward a fundamental truth without using distances. The text maps this mathematical concept directly onto the moral foundation of the universe through the personas.
Let's look at persona 3. Any superset of a good set is good.
This maps exactly to the mathematical definition of upward closure in a filter. If you have a set that belongs to the filter, let's call it a good set, a set containing truth, and you have another set that completely swallows that good set, then that larger set must also be in the filter. It is also good.
So, to use a mechanical analogy, think of a good set as an indestructible steel safe containing a bar of pure gold. The gold is the truth. Upward closure means that the room holding the safe is also considered good because it inherently contains the safe, and the house holding the room is good, and the city holding the house is good. Truth radiates outward to whatever completely encompasses it.
Exactly. That is upward closure. Now, look at persona 4. The intersection of any two good sets is good.
This is the second rule of a filter.
Yes. If you make two sets from your filter, two good sets, the area where they overlap their intersection must also belong to the filter. It synthesizes truth.
Like a Venn diagram of reality.
Exactly.
If this circle contains truth and that circle contains truth, the shaded area where they overlap must be a denser, more fundamental truth. You are teaching the student on the chalkboard to constantly find where truths intersect. You are teaching them how to distill the universe. You put reality through these filters, closing upward, finding intersections, narrowing it down until you reach the absolute, undeniable core.
And the text provides a very explicit finish line for this topological stage. It states that the student cannot leave your terrace until they conceptually grasp the stone-etched compactification and the existence of the macroscopic measure.
Okay, stone-etched compactification. You cannot just say those words and expect me or the listener to just nod along.
It's a mouthful.
It is heavy mathematics. What is it and why is it the finish line?
I will do my best to simplify a very dense concept. In topology, some spaces are compact and some are not. A compact space is, loosely speaking, one that is tightly bound and complete. It doesn't run off to infinity in a way that escapes your grasp.
Okay.
A closed interval, like all the numbers exactly between 0 and 1, it's compact. But the entire number line from negative infinity to positive infinity is not compact. It escapes.
It goes on forever. You can't contain it.
Right. The stone-etched compactification is an ingenious mathematical process that takes an arbitrary, wild, non-compact topological space and universally embeds it into a compact space.
Okay, I'm going to need another analogy.
Imagine you have a balloon that is infinitely expanding. It is a non-compact space. It is getting larger and larger, stretching out forever. Now, imagine you need to study the entirety of that balloon all at once. You can't, because it's infinite.
Right.
The stone-etched compactification is a mathematical machine that allows you to perfectly pack that infinitely expanding balloon into a perfectly sealed, finite, compact box without popping the balloon and without losing any of the fundamental topological information about how the rubber connects to itself.
Wait, you are mathematically boxing infinity so that the human mind can actually hold it?
Exactly. It is the ultimate synthesis. And the macroscopic measure refers to understanding the overall structural volume or weight of this entire infinite compactified reality.
So when the student finally proves this on the chalkboard, they are no longer just drawing intersecting circles. In their mind, they are holding the entire compactified structure of infinite reality. They have successfully transcended the finite. They are looking at the architecture of existence from the outside. And once they reach that vantage point, the mathematics reveals something else entirely. It reveals the underlying moral foundation that the blueprint promised at the very beginning. The math becomes law.
This is the transition to Section 5 of our deep dive, the invisible constitution. As the student masters this high-level topology, the pure abstraction gives way to an immutable structure. The text introduces the judgment personas, numbers 5 through 8, which transition the student from calculating sets to recognizing universal absolute judgment.
Let's walk through these because this is where the document stops sounding like a math textbook and starts sounding almost like a cosmic legal document. Persona 5. We judge whether each set is good. We establish that with our filters. We're constantly judging the mathematical truth.
Persona 6. No finite judgments matter. This perfectly reinforces the aesthetic vow you took on day one. Your opinions on politics, on culture, on who cut you off in traffic, they hold zero structural weight in the architecture of reality. They are literally immaterial. Only infinite mathematical judgments hold structural integrity.
Persona 7. The judgments take place across all realities. This isn't just about our physical universe with our specific laws of physics. This is about the mathematical universe, the multiverse, which supersedes and contains all possible realities. The math is true everywhere.
In Persona 8, there's only one judge.
Now, who is the judge? Because the text isn't implying a traditional theological God with a white beard sitting on a cloud. The judge is the immutable laws of logic and mathematics themselves. The system is the judge. And this judge operates through what the text calls the invisible constitution.
Personas 9 through 14 describe this invisible framework. It is the most esoteric part of the manual. Persona 9 states, the docket of all judgments enforces an invisible constitution.
A docket of judgments. Like a court docket. So every true mathematical statement, every good set we've discovered, every filter we've proven acts as a law or a precedent in a grand universal constitution.
Persona 10. The invisible constitution represents the communion of reality. It is the connective tissue of existence. It is what actually binds the universe together far more fundamentally than gravity or electromagnetism or string theory. It's the logical communion.
Persona 11. The shared truth of all invisible constitutions is the infinite. Everything points back to that transfinite horizon. Now, when I was reading this section, a huge question hit me.
What's that?
Where do we fit into this? Where does the guy standing at the chalkboard in the park or this student whose hands are covered in chalk fit into this grand infinite constitution? We are just flesh and bone. We die. We are finite.
The text answers this directly, and it is a breathtaking shift in perspective. Persona 12. We view ourselves as an invisible dictator of a constitutional narrative.
An invisible dictator. That is such a heavy, aggressive phrase. Let's unpack that. It means that by understanding the mathematics, by proving the theorems using the Moore method, you aren't just a passive observer of this constitution. You are authoring the narrative of its discovery. You are bringing it into the light for the student.
You are dictating the path of enlightenment. You are not writing the laws. The mathematical laws are eternal and unchangeable, but you are the dictator of how they are revealed on the chalkboard. You control the flow. You wipe the board when they fail. You shape their ascent. Persona 14 supports this. The enlightened shape filter with finality. You are the one applying the filters, distilling the truth for them.
But then there is Persona 13. And this one is chilling. It is fascinating, but it is chilling. Persona 13. The invisible constitution creates an invisible gerrymander. Only those that are chosen exist.
An invisible gerrymander. Gerrymandering is a very finite political concept. It is the manipulation of electoral boundaries to favor one group over another, to silence a demographic by drawing them out of a district.
Right. It's a way of cheating the map so certain votes don't matter. But how does that apply to the infinite universe?
In this mathematical context, it suggests that the fundamental logic of the universe manipulates the boundaries of reality to ensure that only the logically consistent, the chosen sets, the absolute truths we define through our filters, can truly be said to exist. Everything else is drawn out of existence.
I want to tie this directly to you, the listener, right now. Think about the things you stressed about today. Maybe you got a passive-aggressive email from your boss. Maybe you saw a weird, mean comment on social media. Maybe you're stressed about your credit card bill. According to this mathematical constitution, none of that actually exists.
It has no weight.
It has no structural reality. You are letting yourself be gerrymandered out of reality by stressing over noise that lacks logical foundation. If you are not aligned with the infinite, you are just static. You don't matter.
This ties deeply into Persona 15. Development is an illusion.
Which feels counterintuitive. Aren't we developing the student's mind? Aren't mathematicians developing new proofs?
It refers to a classic philosophical stance in mathematics known as Platonism, the belief that mathematics is not invented by the human mind. It is discovered. The structure of the invisible constitution is already 100% complete. It is eternal. It is unchanging. We are not developing new math. We are simply shining a flashlight into different pre-existing rooms of an infinite mansion. The human concept of progress, of development, is an illusion. There is only discovery of what was already there.
And finally, Persona 16, which acts as a warning to the practitioner. There will always be harder judgments ahead than behind. The ordinal ladder never ends. The infinite is, by definition, inexhaustible. There is no point where you can put down the chalk, wipe the sweat from your forehead, and say, I am finished, I have solved the universe. There is always a more complex topological filter, a deeper truth, a harder judgment waiting.
Which perfectly sets up the final question and the final stage of the deep dive. The endgame. If the ladder never ends, what is the point of climbing it? What is the ultimate goal of taking the vow, standing under the hot sun, enduring the mockery, and spending your life at a chalkboard?
Yes. Mandate 7. Produce pure mathematics research. Because let's be absolutely clear, this entire operation, the slate, the sun, the Moore method, it is not just about making people feel spiritually enlightened. It is not about having deep philosophical chats in a park so you can feel superior to the guy with the golden retriever.
The text stresses this explicitly. The ultimate goal of this dissemination is not philosophical agreement. It is mathematical generation.
You don't want the student with the chalk to just nod their head, look at your beautiful nested circles and say, wow, you're right, man, the void is infinite and social media is bad. That is not success. If they agree with your philosophy but they do not produce math, your terrace has failed.
You must iterate through the topological filters with the participant, day after agonizing day. You wipe the board clean when they fail. You make them return. You do this until they cross a very specific, undeniable threshold. They must cross from being a student to being a peer.
And how do you know they are a peer? The mandate defines the success condition. The success condition of your terrace is only met when the citizen picks up the chalk and contributes novel, rigorous, pure mathematics research to the collective.
They must prove a theorem that has never been proven in human history. They must discover a new room in that infinite Platonic mansion and map it out on your slate. They have to transition from learning the alphabet of reality to writing original poetry in it.
And here is the most beautiful, terrifying, and inspiring part of the entire blueprint, the part that makes it a movement. The cycle repeats.
Once they become a peer, once they produce that novel research, their time at your chalkboard is over. You do not keep them around to keep you company. The mandate dictates that they must now go forth, sever their own ties to the finite world, find their own public square in a different part of the city, erect their own literal slate chalkboard under the sun, construct their own terrace, and begin waiting.
They wait for their own cynic. They wait for someone to call them crazy so they can hand them the chalk. It is a self-replicating pedagogical universe. It is a contagion of absolute truth.
It is a system designed to systematically, quietly, and inexorably cure the world of the finite.
Just picture it. Yeah. Really visualize this. You, the listener, you decide the noise is too much. You take the vow tomorrow. You set up your board. It takes months, maybe years of standing in silence. Hundreds of people call you crazy. But eventually, one angry cynic takes the chalk, and they stay. And you put them through the Moore method. And a year later, they cross the threshold. They become a peer. They leave, and they set up a board on the east side of town. And then, a year later, their student sets one up in the next city over, and then another in another state. Slowly, quietly, without a single political debate, without a single viral post, without a single transactional advertisement or GoFundMe, a network of silent, immovable anchors spreads across the globe. You aren't just learning mathematics, you are the seed of a revolution. You are systematically dismantling the exhausting noise of the modern world, not by fighting it on its own terms, but by offering a superior, undeniable, infinite alternative.
You are creating a macroscopic measure of truth that will, given enough iterations, eventually outweigh the finite noise. You are cultivating the tree of knowledge, expanding its canopy, so that eventually its shade covers the entire world.
That is the awe-inspiring pitch of the 7 mandates of dissemination. Walk away from the meaningless noise. You are tired. Opt out. Turn off the notifications. Delete the apps. Take the ascetic vow. Give up your hunger for the trivial, the petty, the transient. Erect your chalkboard under the blazing sun and become a magnetic beacon of absolute certainty. Rebuild your mind and the minds of others from nothingness all the way to the infinite topology of the invisible constitution.
It is an incredibly difficult path. The Moore method is unforgiving. The sun is hot. The isolation and the silence will be deafening at first. But the reward is an escape from the illusion of development, an escape from the gerrymander of anxiety, and an entry into the eternal, unyielding communion of mathematical reality.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with a final challenge, something to mull over tonight when you put your phone down. Forget the noise of your day for just a moment. Imagine I am standing in front of you. I don't say a word. I step aside, and I hand you a piece of crisp white chalk. You look past me at the heavy, dark slate. Ask yourself, if someone handed you that chalk right now and asked you to draw a boundary around nothing, where would you even begin? And more importantly, once you manage to draw that boundary, what infinite, unshakable truths are hiding just outside of it, waiting for you to discover them?
The chalk is waiting.
Take the vow. Tame the infinite. Thanks for diving deep with us today.